Good afternoon, staff. This presentation is to fill you in on some of the details that was presented on June 13th at the Guided Math Workshop. Those that participated received this guided math book. So if you did not go, you obviously did not receive this. So you can see any of your colleagues or me to look at this book. It talks about guided math during the first 25 days. They did kind of simplify it for the first 20 days to how to start setting up guided math stations within the first 20 days of school to fit within our guidelines. They also passed out packets of materials for each grade level. I was in the 3, 4, 5 session, and unfortunately there was no other representatives there. So for grades 3, 4, 5, I have your materials. It's one set per grade level, so you'll have to share with your grade level partner, make copies. K1, 2 had a representative there, so you'll need to see your grade level partner for that information. So I'm going to go through the presentation of what they presented and then go over our expectations. So the guided math workshop, you're going to see through the presentation, I essentially took screenshots of everything that I thought was important to put together this presentation so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So the benefits of guided math for teachers are so you can target teaching to differentiated needs, you have on-the-spot error analysis, you can question more deeply, and you can focus on math content standards and practices. Students are able to target instruction for individual needs. They can have more individual attention. They have the opportunity to speak and listen about math thinking, and they have more their math confidence increases. Why should we be having guided math groups, just like we have guided reading groups? It can change, the activities can change from one to another, intensify, go from individual to group work, and change locations, frequency of feedback, and positive social bonding. That's, of course, making sure that you set this up within the first 20 days of school, or when you do set up your math stations, which should be shortly after that, depending on the lower grades especially, that you set up that positive culture and students know what to do. The average, these are 2 pictures of the brain looking at the same group of 20 students taking a test. So after sitting, the brain, after sitting quietly, you can see that it's just kind of there. Their neurons are not really firing, where after they took a 20-minute walk, they're more actively engaged. So part of having math stations and reading stations, they're up and moving every 15 to 20 minutes. So that movement is going to help them stay more engaged, where I know most of us see that as, oh my God, they're moving around, this is chaotic. But if we have that what we call organized chaos, then they're going to be just fine, and it's actually going to help them focus more than if they're in their seats for long periods of time. That's why it's also important to have those brain breaks and things like that built into our day, because sitting for long periods of time, as we all know, is not good for students, and we know it's not even good for us. What is guided math? It's a structure to support diverse students, and the biggest part for us is that differentiation. We know students coming in have so many gaps, and year to year we say these students are low. Well, we need to think about where they started and what the previous teacher did to get them where they're at. We can't go from them not being able to even know their own name to being at grade level in 9 months. Everybody's doing the best that they can. We know that our students come from a variety of backgrounds and various levels of support at home. So we need to keep that in mind no matter what grade level we're in, and just keep working with what we have. But having that combination of individual, partner, small group, and whole class, and incorporating that guided instruction and having engaging math centers is certainly going to help that gap as they go along throughout every grade level. How is guided math different? It focuses on large group mini lessons, so you're still going to have that component in the beginning of your lesson where you're teaching whole group. This does not replace what you're already doing. We're just talking about after you do your whole group instruction, the guided math part. Math groups are utilized, again, they're engaging stations, and you have basically mini workstations. Again, I'm taking these PowerPoint slides from the presentation and kind of filling you in. You may hear other colleagues talk about, there was some confusion because they made it sound like their practices were to do this instead of whole group instruction, and that is not how we are going to do things. You do want to make sure in your guided groups and in your stations that you limit the amount of new material to practice to 1 to 2 skills per week. You don't want to have lots of new skills at your stations because that will become very overwhelming for the students, and then they're going to be asking lots of questions. The purpose of the stations is to make sure that they're individual practice. We want to limit practice to short, intense periods of learning. We want to determine the type of practice. Is it new skill? Is it more frequent and varied context? What is it? We want to be able to assess the accuracy of practice with feedback, and we want to include time on reasoning and how deep is the understanding. What happens in the teacher-led group? So you still did your whole group instruction. You did your I do, we do, you do. Now they're in guided groups. So you have your group over at your table. So you might still have to do some reteaching. That's why it says short mini lesson, 2 to 3 minutes or model. This is not your I do. This is when your group is at your table. So students complete a few more examples on their own with you. They review the skill, they practice. You record observations, and you want to quickly switch the groups. So you want to do, groups should be about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so you don't want to. So if you're doing a worksheet, you might want to skip around and go over another section which covers the same skill but in another format. Obviously, if you're in the group with them, you want to do the harder stuff with them that they're going to need assistance with instead of the easy stuff that they could probably get on their own. Math groups are data-driven and flexible. Just like we've always done, you can use a pretest that's short to help determine how you're going to group your kids. It doesn't mean you need to regroup your kids every week. You might spend, a whole grading period, a whole 9 weeks with the same groups and then switch. It just kind of depends on what data you're using to group your kids. If you're using NWEA, you might only group your kids differently a couple times a year. It just kind of depends. Engaging math activities. This is where some of us struggle because some of the activities we're using are kind of busy work and they're not very engaging. We want activities where the students are collectively or individually manipulating math. These could be a math center where skills are practiced or they're a hands-on activity. These activities are chosen because they practice a specific learned skill. We want these activities for them to practice over time as a distributed practice, which is key to retention and mastery. So we think about, why don't we drill and kill anymore? Some of these quote-unquote drill and kill could be done in a station. One type of station you could have is a skills review station. You could have it where they complete something independently, but it must be a review page over a concept practice for several weeks or a previous grade level skill. So something that they should already know, they don't need help with, this isn't new material. You would provide answer keys for students to grade, collect and review and monitor progress levels. You could use it for a weekly grade. That's kind of debatable if the students are grading it, but I would check on it to see how students are doing because they should be getting feedback on the work that they're doing in the stations, whether it's from their peers or they're grading it and being like, oh, maybe I didn't do so great on this. And then you're conferencing with them or you're collecting it to check on it so there's some kind of accountability. Maybe you're just taking it for a grade as far as accountability. Provides continual review for year-long mastery. And then again, you can differentiate this. So if you know little Johnny is really working at a second grade level and then you have somebody that's working above their grade level, you could give them, if you're a third grade teacher, you would give, the person working at a first, second grade level and first grade worksheet with maybe simple addition where somebody else might have a multiplication worksheet. That's where the differentiation comes in because you need to start where they're at and build them up. You could have a math fact station. Why? Because once students learn basic facts, they can master complex multi-step math problems. We all know if they haven't mastered their basic facts that it makes everything else more difficult. So this could be worksheets. Although I would steer away from worksheets, I would go more towards manipulatives, card games, power towers, flashcards, computer games. And most of us do a great job with the Math Fact Station. We use MobyMax, we use Topit, we use all kinds of things for Math Fact Stations. So this is something I know that we do a good job on, and this is something that we should continue doing. So just a general focus, kindergarten should be number sense, possibly addition, subtraction. K to 2 should definitely be, or 1 and 2 should be addition, subtraction for sure. 3, 5 should be focused on multiplication and division. Again, if you have a student that's really low, you might need to go down a little bit in where their skills are at, but where I think this is an area that at Franklin we have as a strength for one of our stations. Some stations ideas that they gave, sorry the pictures are not the best quality here, but the first picture is power tower. There are cups with facts on it. If they get it right, then they stack it up to make a tower. They learn to build a bigger tower so it has a bigger base. So basically they're seeing how big of a tower that they can build. And then the second picture is that they have a sheet with facts on it, and then they use a Gatorade lid or water bottle lid with numbers on it, and they have to figure out where the number goes. So like the lids have just like 7, just numbers on it. So like the first one says 2 plus, and then there's a circle, equals 12. So then they would find the Gatorade lid that has the number 10 on it, because then 2 plus 10 equals 12. So then they would put them on, and you could have them work in partners and see what it is. They're all mixed up. Some have multiplication, some have addition. Maybe that's multiplication. Maybe it's supposed to be 2 times 6 equals 12. But anyway, sorry, it was a little blurry to read. So all the facts are mixed up. They would have to, work with a partner, or you could do it by themselves, have their partner check it, something like that. So those were some ideas that they gave at the workshop. Some management tips that they gave. So how do I manage these groups while I'm with a group? So again, model, model, model. Enforce the procedures and your consequences. Inform them if this is an individual or partner activity, what the acceptable noise level is. If it's necessary to intervene, remind them about the noise level. Don't wait until your eyes are bugging out. I'm not sure what they meant by that, but if they're going crazy. Students will be motivated to play and therefore motivated to follow the rules. It says, really, this does work. See for yourself. Remember the key. Teach the behavior, expect the behavior, and reinforce the behavior. So again, it's all about your attitude and what you follow through with. Again, following those expectations in the first 20 days and following it all year. It can't sometimes be okay and sometimes not okay. It has to be consistent. And we have lots of great teachers in our own building that have great station setups and have great procedures. So if there's anybody that you would like to go visit to see how they do it, just let me know and I can pair you up with them. Multiple assessments. So they talked a little bit about multiple assessments. We do a great job at that. Again, this was just from the workshop. I'm not saying that we're going to be adding any more assessments to what we already do, but this was just some things that they talked about. We already do, again, a great job, so I'm not really going to go into depth about this. They talked about keeping a journal and all these different things, but I'm not real worried about that. Something that they put in their slide is how you keep up with grading. They talked about, again, because they use this as their whole system, not really an I do, you do, and then stations. So they talked about how they kept up with grading. So I guess if grading's becoming overwhelming, they said that they did grading on certain days of the week. They graded it and things like that. But we aren't going to give pre-tests and post-tests every week necessarily. Our curriculum's a little bit different because they don't use everyday math or some of the curriculum items we use. So this was, again, a slide from the presentation. So it just depends on your class and what you and your grade level partner are taking for grades. So These are the major takeaways from this math workshop that I got out of sitting in the 3 through 5 session. If you're a K-1-2 teacher and you got something else out of it that I did not talk about, please add that in the comment section so teachers are aware of it, and we can also talk about it at our staff meeting. We will not talk about this a ton at our back to school retreat, maybe some during the sharing ideas section if you have some math workshop or math station ideas, but this will not be a main topic of discussion at the retreat. This is not instead of whole group instruction. This is just to get you thinking about the math workshop model. Just like reading, we will still be doing whole group instruction with the I do, we do, you do, and assessing the objective. So again, this is not replacing what you're already doing. This is the workshop model. So when you're done and you have your guided math group, which I know was difficult, especially for upper grades when following Everyday Math with Fidelity, and we've already talked about how we're going to be adjusting with that. So you will be expected to have guided math groups. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with our data, which is a section of the retreat. The idea is to get 1 to 3 guided math groups per day, so throughout the week we would see everyone. Again, you're going to see your high groups a little bit less, your low groups a little bit more. I know there's not as much time because we only have 90 minutes for math, but we're going to try to work on this as being a higher priority this year. Other stations need to be purposeful, not busy work. Students can be doing many purposeful things without your guidance. This has to be taught, especially during the first 20 days with routines and procedures. If you do not teach them, it will be chaos. Remember, this takes time. Just think about how long it takes us to teach kindergarten to do the right thing. But they're still learning things along the way. During that first 20 days, you're still teaching curriculum. You're not just teaching routines and procedures. So as you're teaching math, you're teaching them how to do math stations. What is the procedure for going to a station? What is the procedure for doing some of these activities? If they need something, what is the procedure for getting your attention? What is the procedure if they need to go to the bathroom in the middle of a station? All these different things. So if you, again, need some ideas, you can even post comments on our Google Classroom and ask your fellow colleagues, what do you do in this situation? And I'm sure somebody has an answer. Again, station ideas, guided math station, that's a must. That's when they meet with you in small group. Some other ideas, they're not mandatory, but or your skills review, your fact station, which I would highly encourage. Again, that could be MobyMax, Ascend, math games like Top It. That could be a variety of things. Most of you have more than one fact station. That's perfect. That's fine. Engaged math activity station. Most of you have great math stations. I'm not saying that all of the stations you do are not appropriate. If you're not sure, please see Mr. Scolari or I, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. Okay, it's quiz time. Please take the short quiz below so I can get some feedback and your insight on your thinking. So here is the link. I will also, because you can't click on it through the YouTube video, I will also provide the link in the Google Classroom so you can click on it. And this will also show me that you took the quiz, so I will know that you watched this video. It will be an assignment, so also make sure you go in Google Classroom and click Done. I will be providing feedback as well. I would prefer that you have this watched by the first day of school. If you have it watched by the retreat, which is August 11th, that would be even better. But if you could have this watched by August 17th, that would be fabulous. If you have any additional questions, please put it in the comments, or I believe there's a section in the quiz for that. As always, you could also email me. I hope that this was somewhat informative. It's probably a little repetitive because of doing our guided reading groups. It's very similar, but I wanted to make sure you had the information from this workshop so you are ready to go. That is all for the guided math presentation. I will not be doing the benchmark presentation. There is some information on that, and I will post a separate announcement for that. Have a great afternoon.